Today I'm going to be making dal dhokli, which is a really cool recipe my friend Rupa taught me, Indian recipe, using these oily split peas, which are really cool looking. They're really kind of orange and translucent because they come in oil. And dal dhokli is kind of like Indian pasta, except it's a lot easier to make than Italian pasta. So it's kind of got these little pieces of kind of like pasta dough that you make, and then you drop into a really delicious sauce made out of these. So my first step is going to be to get these cooking in my pressure cooker. I'm going to cook them quite soft because you then pass them through a sieve to kind of make them into a really soft sauce. So once these are cooking, I'll start making my pasta dough. Look how lovely and glistening they are. I'm going to rinse them though. While that's cooking in the pressure cooker, I'm just going to grab all the different spices and ingredients I'm going to need to make the dal. And for this recipe too, I can use these curry leaves that Rupa gave me as a gift, which I keep in the freezer. So here we are. We've got here the curry leaves, chilies, ginger, lemons, peanuts and cashews, tomato, tinned tomato, coriander, fresh coriander. We've got ajwain and hing, turmeric, cinnamon powder, star anise, cumin, mustard seeds, and I'm going to use a little bit of a cinnamon stick as well. There we go, right at the bottom of the pile. This is the dhokli. Gram flour is chickpea flour, but apparently there's another kind of chickpea flour that's not the same. So if you're making this recipe, make sure you get the Indian one. And this is made with a mixture of the gram flour and just regular plain flour. I forgot one ingredient there, chili powder, so I've just gone to get that. The other things that are going into this dough are salt, a little bit of oil and some baking powder. So I'm going to mix all the ingredients in the dough by hand in a bowl for about 8 minutes. Oh, the driver. He was alright. I listened to the rest of Brett's thing, by the way. Oh. So the pressure cooker's finished cooking my lentils. I'm letting it depressurize naturally though, which will take, I don't know, 8 minutes or something. So in the meantime, I'm just going to measure out the stuff I'm going to need for the next stage, which is called tempering the dal. So here I've prepared all the ingredients that I'm going to need to temper my dal. I've got ginger, chili, cloves, a bit of cinnamon stick, curry leaves, star anise, mustard seeds, cumin, and a mix of peanuts and cashews. I've got my lentils out of the pressure cooker and they're very soft, which is great. Hopefully I can push them through a sieve. And now it's time to shape my pasta. What I'm aiming to do now is roll out the dhokli into a 2mm thick sheet, which I'll then cut into a kind of diamond pattern. I can then cover that up with a damp cloth again, and that can sit until it's ready to go into the dal. Goes in, I think, towards the end and just cooks through for a few minutes. I think I'm right about that, but let's see when we get there. I decided to split the dough into two because I have limited space here, and also the recipe suggested to do it in a couple of pieces as well. Trying to remember how the shape is supposed to be, kind of like long diamond patterns, I think. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let me show you one. These dry out quite fast, so you're going to definitely need a damp cloth to cover them with. Now I'm going to put my dal through a sieve to try and get a really kind of thick, nice sauce. So the lentils went through the sieve very nicely. I'm just left with some kind of some little casings, it looks like, of the split peas left, and now I've got some kind of yellow liquid, which is the dal, which is going to go into the pan and then be tempered with all these spices and flavourings. Right, so I forgot to temper the spices in the pan before pouring the dal in on top, so I'm going to do it in another pan and then just transfer in a minute. This is a really fun part. I've heated the oil and I'm going to add the spices in now, the whole ones first, so that they can kind of toast a little bit. So that's going to cook away for 5 minutes before I add in the dal that I made. Then it'll cook for another 10-15 before I add in my little pasta pieces to cook at the end. It doesn't say how long to cook the pasta pieces in, but I remember them cooking very fast. They thicken up a bit and they turn into a really lovely kind of chewy texture in the sauce. So that happens just right at the end, and then all you do at the end is serve with a little bit of chopped coriander. So I can now tidy up while this is cooking and just get my coriander chopped ready to serve at the end. So here's my dal, just coming to the end of the cooking. As you can see up here, I've started to try and fish out some of the whole spices. I've got star anise and some cloves and cinnamon and stuff in there, so I'm going to fish those out if I can find them. And then we've just got some lemon, sugar, salt to add, and some coriander to put on at the end. Now I'm going to drop my dhokli into the dal. It needs to be boiling quite rapidly so that they don't stick. And what I remember from doing this before is that it's quite a good idea to sort of agitate each one as you drop it in so that they don't stick to each other. You can do a few at once. And just give them a little stir. And then keep adding more. I forgot to mention that as you add the dhokli in just a few at a time, it does really thicken up. So what you can do is add a little more boiling water in as you go, and then just keep adding them a few at a time, making sure they don't stick to the bottom or stick to each other. And I've now added in my lemon, sugar and salt too, so we should be pretty much ready to go. So it's the day after cooking the dal dhokli, and I'm about to have some, I'm very happy that I have some leftovers that I'm about to have for my lunch. I'm And I enjoyed this meal so much last night. I wanted to talk about it a tiny bit more. It really is a recipe that I love, and I think it's because it doesn't really taste like anything else, any other dish that I make. I realised yesterday when I was cooking it, it doesn't have any onion or garlic in it, which is quite odd. I couldn't think of another meal that I make that doesn't have either one or both of those ingredients. It just has ginger and chili and then all the spices, and it's such an interesting mixture of spices. Another thing I did, because you cook the sort of pasta pieces, the dhokli, in the sauce, I didn't really know what that tasted like by itself. So I actually kind of rinsed the sauce off one piece and just ate it kind of plain just to see. And it really is delicious because there's quite a lot of spices that go into the dough for that. I think the other thing that I really like is that it's got quite a lot of lemon juice in it. And something that I love in a lot of Asian recipes is there's this kind of interplay between sweetness and acidity, or sweet and sour. Quite often the recipes that I make have a tiny bit of sugar and then something to balance that out, either lemon, lime, tamarind, or vinegar, something like that, which gives a really nice kind of acidity or sourness. And it's the lemon in this that I think is really particularly delicious. In Mexican food, I've become really obsessed with tomatillos, which are the green tomatoes that are used in quite a lot of Mexican dishes that have the same kind of really acidic quality. They're really, really kind of savoury and delicious. I'm hoping to cook something with those at some point in the vlog in the future. Cooking this reminded me that it is quite a laborious recipe to make in a way. I think because I was filming, and B, because I hadn't made it in ages, there was a lot of checking and rechecking and making mistakes and things. So I think if I made it more often, I would get quicker. But also I was wondering about how I would do some stages ahead of time for a recipe like this. I think if I was going to do it again, at lunchtime, I would certainly cook the lentils. You can do that way in advance. And I was thinking you could make the dough in advance too, but in fact the dough isn't the bit that takes a while. The dough takes 20 minutes. It's kind of 8 minutes to knead, 10 minutes to rest, and then it's ready to use. So what I would actually think about doing is making the whole dal in advance, maybe at lunchtime, cooking the lentils, getting them ready, and then just make the dal and just leave the dough part to do in the evening, because I'm not sure how the dough would last, whether it would dry out at all if you left it for several hours. And that would mean doing quite a bit of cooking at lunchtime, but also it would be very easy to put it all together once it came to the evening. You could just make the dough, chop it up and chuck it in to your kind of ready-made dal. So that's something I might try next time. So I thought in this episode I would show you one more Indian recipe as well, so that the episode wasn't too short. This is a dish called bhaji. It's a really popular street food in India, but I first tried it in a restaurant in Leeds when I was there for the Thought Bubble Comic Festival. And I went for a meal with some friends, and when I found out that it was a Gujarati restaurant, I texted my friend Rupa, because she's a bit of an expert in Gujarati food, and I asked her what I should order, and I think pav bhaji was the first thing she suggested, which we ordered. It was a starter in the restaurant, and it was really, really, really delicious. And it's taken me years to get around to trying making it at home, but I made it on Diwali actually this year for the first time, and it was really fantastic. So this is my second time making it, and I've made a start here boiling some vegetables. It varies from recipe to recipe what vegetables you include. Last time I made it I just used potato and pea, but because I have some carrots that need using, this time I've put a carrot in as well. And it's basically some cooked down vegetables mashed up with lots of spices, some tomato, and you serve it with a toasted soft white bread roll, like a sort of dinner roll, buttered and toasted, and you can kind of scoop your curry onto that and eat it. So I'll show you what I've got going on over here now. So over here I've just finished boiling my potato and carrot. I'm about to drain that. And over here I've started chopping onion, garlic and chilies. I actually ran out of onion today, so that's quite a small amount of onions, so I'm putting in a little extra garlic to hopefully make up for that. And I've reserved a little finely chopped onion here to be kind of garnish when it comes to serving. Lemon, cinnamon stick, whole cloves. I've got fenugreek, garam masala, fennel seeds, cumin, turmeric, star anise and chili powder. Seems like a lot of ingredients, but as I may have said before, once you start kind of making Indian food regularly, it really pays to have all these because you do use them again and again. So I really love having them and being able to use them in different dishes. So yeah, even though this seems like a lot of ingredients, the actual vegetables, it's just like a large potato, a carrot, some onion and garlic, which I always have in, ginger. I always have tin tomato available, so I'm using, I think, half a tin of that, maybe a whole tin, I'll have to check. Some coriander, got my peas defrosting here, and these are my bread rolls that I made earlier in the week. I've drained my vegetables. In a moment I'll be mashing those, and I'm heating some oil in the pan. So the next step is to kind of soften the onion in the oil, and then the chili, ginger and garlic as well. And then add in any of the spices that are whole, like the cinnamon stick, the cloves, and the star anise and fennel seeds. Here's my onion, garlic, chili and ginger softening and my whole spices. So that's the aromatics ready. And because my tomatoes were whole in the tin, I've quickly blended those and I'm going to add them in now. Next I'm adding the salt, the lemon juice and all the powdered spices. There we go. I will of course put the quantities in the recipe for you. Next I'm going to put the lid on this and let this simmer for a few minutes. So now my cooked potato and carrot is mashed, my peas are defrosted, and I'm going to add them into the pan with the rest of the curry. But first I might see if I can fish out my whole spices. I managed to find them all. It's always really fun trying to find those tiny cloves. There we go, all mixed together now. It's always such a beautiful orange colour with the green kind of accents from the peas. So now I'm going to put the lid on, let this cook for another few minutes, and then it's pretty much ready to serve. I'll toast my buns, butter them, and then it'll be ready to go.